Today we're going to dive into a 7th century economic blueprint. And this thing dealt with everything: social welfare, a kind of wealth tax, military spending, you name it. This is the story of the Caliph Uthman's treasury. And honestly, it's a system that might just make you rethink how we look at economics today.
So, picture this. You're faced with a massive question. How do you build a fair, stable economy for a brand new empire that is expanding at a mind-blowing rate? I mean, that was the exact challenge facing the early Islamic state. And their answer? It was both revolutionary and, you'll see, deeply principled.
Right at the heart of their whole solution was this institution, the Bayt al-Mal, or the public treasury. Now you can think of it as a mix of a modern treasury department, a social security administration, and a defense budget office all rolled into one. It was basically the financial engine of the entire community, and it was designed to serve everyone.
Okay, so you have this engine, but you gotta fuel it, right? To do that, the state needed really clear and really just sources of revenue. The first pillar of that was zakah. That's the obligatory annual charity. And under Caliph Uthman, the rules were made crystal clear for everybody.
You know, Uthman's principles were brilliantly simple. First, he made it predictable by setting a specific month for payment. No surprises. Second, he made it fair. He insisted that people settle their own private debts before paying the state. Think about that. And maybe most important, he made it compassionate. If you didn't meet the wealth threshold, you didn't owe a thing. Though, of course, you could always give voluntarily. It was all about creating a system that was predictable and just.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Uthman upheld this brilliant distinction. For what he called visible wealth, stuff like livestock and crops, things you can easily see and count, the state would come and assess what was due. But for invisible wealth, your personal gold, your silver, your trade goods, that was a matter of pure trust. The state wasn't going to come search your house. It relied on your personal integrity to contribute. That's a pretty profound statement about the relationship between a person and the state.
This quote from Uthman himself just gets right to the heart of it. Yeah, sure, some collection was enforced for the public good, but the system was fundamentally built on personal responsibility. It was this really delicate balance between state duty and individual faith.
So where did all this money go? Well, it definitely wasn't just sitting in a vault somewhere. It was actively being used to build one of history's earliest and, frankly, most impressive social safety nets.
Uthman really pioneered several programs, all funded by the Bayt al-Mal. He was following the Prophet's own example of being incredibly generous, especially in Ramadan, so he started providing free food in mosques for the poor and for travelers. He set up state-funded inns in big cities for strangers who had nowhere else to go. And maybe the most remarkable thing? He set up a monthly stipend paid directly to slaves from these public funds. This was on top of anything they got from their masters, a direct application of the Quranic principle to free the captives by giving them some financial independence.
See, this wasn't just random charity. It was systemic social care. Imagine arriving in a big city like Kufa as a traveler. A public crier might actually announce that a specific house, funded by the state, was open for you. It was public hospitality, written right into the national budget.
But okay, that's one side of coin. The treasury had another huge function: financing the security and the stability of a state that was growing incredibly fast. And this required a totally different but just as important source of income.
And that source was called the khums. It's based on a principle that's laid out right in the Qur'an. And it was pretty straightforward. It was the state's designated 1/5 share of all the booty from military campaigns. That portion went straight into the Bayt al-Mal to be spent on the public good. And the breakdown was super simple. 4/5, a full 80%, went directly to the soldiers who were actually in the battle. The other 1/5, that was the state's share, earmarked for the public treasury.
And the scale we're talking about here is just massive. A single campaign in North Africa brought in an estimated 30 million dinars in booty. So the state's 20% share, that was 6 million dinars, an absolutely immense sum of money flowing directly into the public treasury from just one campaign.
And it wasn't just from conquests either. The Bayt al-Mal also took in money from peace treaties. For instance, a treaty with the ruler of North Africa brought in over 2.5 million dinars. That's a huge boost to the state's finances, and it came without any more conflict.
So all this massive influx of wealth from the khums and these treaties, well, that was the engine of the state's security. It paid for soldiers' salaries, it bought weapons and horses, and it funded the whole infrastructure needed to govern and protect a massive territory.
But you know, behind all the numbers and all the policies, there was this one essential guiding principle that held the entire system together. And it was a legacy of trust, a legacy of fulfilling your promises no matter what it cost.
The Treaty of Najran is the absolute perfect example. This was a pact made between the Prophet Muhammad and the Christian community of Najran. After the Prophet's death, his successor Abu Bakr honored it. Then his successor Omar also honored it. And when Uthman finally came to power, that promise was still considered sacred.
So decades later, when the people of Najran felt like they were being treated unfairly, they went straight to Uthman. And he didn't try to renegotiate or look for some kind of loophole. Nope, he took out his pen and he personally wrote to his governor, ordering him to reaffirm every single condition of that original pact.
And in that letter, he included this powerful instruction. This wasn't just about a legal obligation. It was a moral one. The honor of the state was tied directly to its ability to protect those who had a covenant with it. This sense of justice, this sense of responsibility, that was the bedrock of the entire economic and social system. So when you put it all together, what you see is a system that balanced how it got revenue with a deep sense of trust. It pioneered social welfare, and it was built on this unwavering commitment to keeping its word. And that leaves us with a pretty compelling question for today. In our own search for economies that aren't just wealthy, but are also just and compassionate, what can we learn from this 7th century blueprint?